Hello, my lovely Scorpios. This is your reading for the week of June 15th, or when you hear it and it resonates. This is interesting because the first thing that came into my mind after I asked Spirit what we were going to offer you this week was I was hearing a lullaby in my head and I was seeing you in a cradle. But what was beautiful was the cradle was being rocked very, very gently by the wind. Now, that is not something that I really identified until I started describing this to you. So as I ask what that's about, what it's saying is that because the wind in this case is representing emotions, heart chakra, circulation, things of that nature, what it's showing me is that there is a quietening down of things, which makes sense also because I heard going from 220 to 110 in terms of your energy output. The first card that I pull for you is pleasure. And I'm going to read the card for you because I think it's really, really relevant for you. Pleasure is often considered to be frivolous. We've been taught, both overtly and covertly, that it will lead us to base desires, away from God and goodness, that it will make us selfish and greedy and lazy and lustful. Have you ever noticed when you work with heartfelt pleasure how much more productive you are? That when pleasure reaches your heart in any kind of loving way, you're kinder and you're loving, more generous and more easily satisfied? Heartfelt pleasure can guide us to acts of kindness and gratitude, open us to greater depths of nourishing desires, compassion, and grace. This, I think, is super important, Scorpio, because the feeling that I'm getting with this card is you're really being told you are by the water, you're getting this wind rocking, this beautiful cradle. And for me, this is about the innocence. It's you are now coming into almost like reclaiming your innocence, reclaiming a certain quality of emotional equilibrium that means now you don't have to feel as though you've always got to be going at it 220 or 100 miles an hour. You can kick back and do a tour. You can take the tourist route and go slowly along the roads. And that's really the feeling that I'm getting. What's also really important here, I feel, is that what Spirit is saying is, thank you. When you are in 220 mode, so I'm thinking 220 volts, for those of you who aren't familiar with this system in North America, 220 volts versus 110 volts, obviously the 220 has a lot more kick to it. So what they're saying is that when you're operating at 220 volts or 100 miles an hour as opposed to 45, what you're doing is your intuition can be kind of hijacked sometimes by your logical mind, which is trying to figure things out. Because when you're in that pitch of energy, it's difficult sometimes. It's a quality of revving in your system. And in that state, it's difficult to just set and let things come to you. So what might happen is things might come to you, and then instead of following the feeling and the impressions that it gives you, you can get immediately into analysis of it, which takes you out of the intuition. That's what can lead to obsessive thinking about things. So what you're being told is this, thank you. This is a good time for a reset. And one of the resets is, one of the first things of this is acknowledging to yourself where you still rev, if you are still revving, where you are still in that do mode, as opposed to going with the flow and following your intuition on things. The other thing, which I really love with this, you've got the pleasure and you've got the bubbly. And this to me is perfect because the bubbly card is saying, basically, whenever you go into the world, whether it's a phone call, whether it's something in person, can you lead with the intention that all of your best qualities are naturally bubbling up out of you? You don't have to force yourself to be rapport building. You don't have to force yourself to kind of create an entrance. You can enter gently into a room and let people gravitate towards you. And that's also a way of getting out of the 220 and moving into the 110, or moving from the 100 miles an hour to the 45. That is where you get to, that is one way for you to be able to assess when you're like that, is behaviors that are so, I would say, what's the word for that? It's kind of like a predetermined approach to meeting and greeting. And that has a certain amount of momentum and push behind it associated with that energy, right? You can't just walk into a room and be subtle and gentle and watch and wait and decide quietly where you want to go. You might be the kind of person who would walk in and then have to introduce yourself to everybody in the room, or make a point of introducing yourself. And maybe that's not always the way for you to go, only because, and sometimes that will be absolutely appropriate when it's coming with the 220 volt kick to it, or if it's coming from that old model of must do, must do, must do, absent of pleasure. Can you dial it back and approach that quality? I'm going to put the bubbly card up there for you in case you want to take a screenshot of it, because I think it's a good one. This is actually something I remember exactly where I learned that, and that was when I was 17 years old, and my aunt gave me a Cosmopolitan magazine, and that exercise was in a yoga article. There you go. Don't know who wrote it, so I can't quote it. But this is something that makes a huge difference, not only in terms of how people receive you, but the comfort with which you enter a room. And when you enter into a room, not as a force, but as a welcomer, that's when you start getting the people aligned with that quality of your energy. And it's a beautiful, beautiful way to start opening up and creating rapport. And then you get to decide where you want to go with it. Again, this is a period of time for a nervous system reset for you. And by paying attention to these details, you can actually work with it. What I am being shown, my dears, is this. It is not just the wind rocking your cradle. There is an angel sitting very quietly in the bow. And this is, I just heard the word healing angel. This is a healing angel. And this is a time for you to receive, oh, thank you, now shivers. This is a time for you to receive healing and ask for healing in any area of your life. And then allow for the information to come to you. This really is a time for you, if you're inclined, to engage your angels, engage your higher conscious self, but really, really concretely welcoming help, because that's not always something that you do easily, Scorpio. Welcoming help from above so that you can kind of just ease your way into a progressive state of healing, as opposed to, I gotta fix it. Okay? I'm going to leave you with that, my very dears. Have a wonderful time. Take care. Much love.